some of the best Nintendo Switch games are ones that you aren't aware of. These are titles that came out and, well, just went under the radar for whatever reason. They aren't the big titles, they may have some obscure ideas, they may not be for everybody, but in this video we're going to have a look at some fantastic titles that deserve to be in your collection. So grab a cup, press start, and let's have a look at some obscure titles and hidden gems for the Nintendo Switch. What if I told you one of the most ambitious games on the Nintendo Switch wasn't one game, but actually 50 games in one? This is UFO 50. Now, this is a compilation of 50 games from a forgotten console. That is the hook. And this is going to take you back to your childhood. Assuming your childhood was full of Atari, NES and stuff like TV Boy, like mine was. UFO 50 compiles 50 games for the make-believe system, the UFO, and this tells the story, the lifetime of that console and the developers and the games that were on there. Some of these games are absolutely short, some of these games are fairly long, but each game has been built up and is fully realised. This isn't one of your compilations where you're just going to pick things up and try things for a minute. No, if you pick things up and try it for a minute, you're only scratching the surface, and each and every one of these games has more hidden stuff under what you would initially play. This is an absolutely fantastic release and I can't recommend this one enough. UFO 50 is easily one of the greats of modern gaming, and it's interesting that it's a great that has very much delved into the past. It's easy to see why this game was passed by so many people. Even the cover art just appeals to certain people, and when you look at the back you can see a compilation series of games, and even if you try one or two you might not be hooked instantly, but get that little bit deeper, you will find an absolute gem of a game that's 100% worth your time checking out. Let's pick up the pace with Victory Heat Rally. Now, this is a title that I loved so much that I bought not only the limited run release, I also picked up the UK release when it came out, and honestly this one is an absolute gem of a game. Victory Heat Rally is pure arcade racing, very much similar to titles such as Outrun 2 from back in the day. The graphics are crisp, the speed is fast, and you just drift around every corner. Of course accompanied by a soundtrack that is absolutely banging. This is a title that I didn't expect much for. I just thought, oh, you know, the visuals look crisp and clean, will not see much of that, but this has become a firm favourite in my collection. Absolute joy of a game. It's difficult enough that you're not going to breeze through everything, but not too difficult that you feel completely outclassed. This is an absolutely fantastic harken back to some classic rally titles that we just do not see nearly enough of these days. If you haven't checked it out already, I would strongly recommend checking out Victory Heat Rally. It is definitely worth your time. Now for something a little bit darker, and you PlayStation 1 horror fans, this is one that needs to be on your list to check out. Crow Country is an absolute love letter to the PS1 horror era. You know what we're talking about here. A classic style survival horror game with a lot of modern features. No tank controls here. That's right, we're going to actually be able to control our character rather well as we delve into the mysterious Crow Country. We want answers and we're going to find them. But what lurks in this abandoned theme park? An absolute fantastic title that respects your time. You can clear these in a few hours, which is absolute standard for a lot of these survival horror games, but you'll keep coming back and back and back. Honestly, this is a title that I just didn't expect much from. I booted it up thinking, oh, you know what, I'll try it out, see how it is. I was absolutely hooked. The whole vibe of it, the fact that this is a classic survival horror game with modern controls, absolutely blew me away, and I just went through it time and time again. I had to complete it. absolutely fantastic release. That if you are a fan of the PS1 classics, definitely check this one out. If you're a fan of The Legend of Zelda, you've had an absolute fantastic time with the Nintendo Switch. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom both being absolute standout titles. Of course, we had other ones such as Hyrule Warriors, a reboot of Skyward Sword, and of course the remake of Link's Awakening, one of the greatest games of all time. But if you're still hankering for more classic Zelda titles, well, you can't go much wrong with Blossom Tales. Now, this is Blossom Tales 2, but both 1 and 2 are on the system. This is a classic Zelda game in its own right. Of course, Link and Zelda and all the other characters aren't in here. Instead, you are Blossom, a young girl who, well, is being shaped by the story a grandfather is telling his 2 grandkids. And things will start to change and get mixed up as them 2 grandkids start putting in their own suggestions on how the story progresses. This is a classic Zelda formula. It doesn't do anything new, it doesn't really do anything unique, but what you do have here is a very fun title, a very charming title that will scratch that Zelda itch. I have played through both Blossom Tales 1 and 2 over the last few months and have been absolutely loving my time with it. These are classics in their own rights, and it's very easy to miss out on them because they're not the big name. Like Zelda, you'll like this one. Before we go into the second half of the list, let me know in the comments, has there been any hidden gems that you guys think are worth checking out? Any title that you just want to shout out and promote and say, this game is on the Nintendo Switch, it is worth people checking out. I want more games for my ever-grown library of Nintendo Switch classics. And if you are enjoying this, leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. There's plenty more Nintendo Switch content coming very soon. The next title is one that isn't going to be on everybody's list. No, this is a title that I'm going to assume most people haven't even heard of, unless of course you've been checking out some of my most recent videos. This title is Wine Simulator 100 Days. So this is a turn-based strategy title in which you create your own wine. That's right, ploughing the fields, tilling the soil, making the labels, ensuring the consistency is just right, befriending the locals and just making things all the more better. This is kind of like a turn-based Harvest Moon, just completely focused on wine. That's right, 100 Days is a unique title, and I think it's one that I think more people should check out. It's not going to be for everybody, but I think this is one that we were definitely going to see a hidden gem, but it's one that I think a lot more people deserve to check it out. I think it's one that a lot of people can get addicted to, and it's one that I think if you do have at least some interest in wine, you're going to get a lot of good mileage out of this one. I've already sank about 10 hours into this. I just can't put it down. It's really addicting. Well worth at least a look in. Let's speed things up a little bit. Mighty Switch Force is an absolute cracker of a game. Now, I have picked this title up time and time again on various consoles, and with the Mighty Switch Force collection, all of those games are all in one glorious whole. Mighty Switch Force puts you in a position of being either a police officer or a firefighter, having to save a bunch of girls by flipping switches, navigating puzzles across a city. Levels are short, but they're very quick and very rewarding. This is one of those games that's going to tax you mentally, but it's not overly difficult. There is a time rush, in here, but I think it gives you more than enough time to be able to sit down, complete it at your own leisure, and then try and go for the high scores. Way Forward has been an absolute mastercraft in terms of visuals and music, and Mighty Switch Force is no stranger to that. Absolutely fantastic collection of a bunch of fantastic games. Honestly, if you can find a copy of this one, I would strongly recommend it. I think the limited run one is starting to creep up in price, but I picked this one up for about £40, so I can't really complain. Absolutely beautiful visions, addicting gameplay, a very, very fun entry. And finally, it's time to mix drinks and save lives. That's right. VA11 Hall A, Valhalla, Cyberpunk Bartending Action. This is probably my favourite Cyberpunk game, and honestly, this is one of my favourite games of all time. Now, this is a strange one because most Cyberpunk games would have you shooting enemies or just, you know, very action oriented. Not in this one. The most action you're going to get in here is remembering the customer's order. This is a game about making drinks and giving those drinks to very specific orders. It sounds rather mundane, but it's a very, very beautiful game because this is basically a snapshot into people's lives. You basically work through a few shifts over the course of maybe about 2 or 3 weeks, trying to keep the rent paid, but also making sure the customers leave satisfied. Mixing different types of drinks will get people drunker faster. Of course, you'll have different choices in terms of the drinks that you'll give. Some people might enjoy it, some people might not. And there's a lot of, I wouldn't say branching paths, but there's a lot of different scenarios that can occur if you give people the right or the wrong drink for that moment. This is an absolute beautiful game. It's an absolute snapshot into this very interesting cyberpunk world. You get to see like the rise of a diva, you get to see the fall of this cyberpunk kind of like police squad. Of course, you get to see people just going on their day-to-day business, and of course you get doggos. This is an absolute gem of a game, and I think more people need to try it out. It's not too long, but there is a lot of reading on it. It's more like a visual novel with some bartending action. Interestingly enough, there was another game called Coffee Talk, which basically took the exact same formula and did a coffee version. Of course, I like tea, so we're going to go with this one instead. An absolute gem of a game, and I think needs to be in more people's collections. There was a limited run release, but I believe it also does have a normal Asian release, so it's one that I would wholeheartedly recommend picking up. So that's the thing about a lot of Nintendo Switch games. They come rather quietly into your life and leave just as quickly. They don't sit at the top of the chart. You don't necessarily find them often in places like CEX. These are all games that people missed for one reason or another, but I think deserve to be in more people's collections. At least that's what I think anyway. Those are just some of my picks. We'll go on and have a look and see if there's some more in a future video. But if I've missed one of these titles on my journey, let me know in the comments. What games should I pick out? The brew's gone cold. I think it's time for another one. Let's make another cup. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.